Thank you, Governor Nixon, and we are so grateful for your taking time out of your busy schedule to be here, not just to welcome us, but to help us think about education going forward. You did not, as you were listing all the wonderful attributes of St. Louis and Missouri, you forgot the world champion St. Louis Cardinals. A little shocking that that could happen. Unfortunately, I will talk to Jeremy Anderson, our new president of this organization, because somehow this arranged in such a way that the Cardinals are out of town while we're here, which for those of us that are devout baseball fans comes as a bit of a setback. You know, the United States has always been the country that's blazed an education trail for the world. Back in the 19th century, this reflected a shared belief that a well-educated population was the only way that we could ever have a successful democracy. In the 20th century, we established equality of access as really one of the bedrock values of our entire educational system. And you go down through the Supreme Court decisions and the various institutional expansions, Brown versus Board of Education and the GI Bill. You look at what Pell Grants have become, the funding for special education, Title IX. All these and so many other efforts open schools to all Americans, regardless of their background, their gender, made sure that they did have equal opportunity. And I think Colorado, just like Missouri and Nevada, every great state has taken the initiative in recent years to make this century the century of equity and achievement. Right? Piece by piece, we're trying to build a system that is accountable on all levels, and from the student to the teacher to the principal to the district administrators to the superintendents. It's designed to perform and facilitate great achievement by our students. And our goal, obviously, is, as Governor Nixon just said, is to make sure that every kid has that chance to walk out of our high schools and into our colleges and universities and to excel, that they become great citizens, a part of a professional workforce, and a part of a society where people are not defined by what zip code they were born in, but they are defined by how high their dreams are and how hard they're willing to work for those dreams. Obviously, it's a traditional at this point in a farewell speech for a chair of ECS to begin describing the litany of failures we have. And it's really not, I don't think, constructive or even fairly accurate to do that. We obviously have much room for progress, and we can spend our dollars in more targeted and intelligent ways. But our public education system is still a remarkably vibrant model of what education can be. Just as best businesses are always looking for new ways to improve and wiser ways to invest their scarce resources and improve performance, we should look at schools no differently. And I think we really need to rethink how do we serve all students and not just those who have traditionally done well by our schools. I told a story last night at one of the receptions. My son, Teddy, is just about to turn 11. And several months ago, he was complaining about how much homework he had in 5th grade. And I said, Teddy, someday you're going to look back on these as the glory days. All you had to do is go to school and learn. And he said, Daddy, you are clueless. He says, Daddy, that's the stupidest thing you've ever said. What do you have to do every day that's so hard? Make decisions? He says, Daddy, get the facts, make a decision, check, next. I said, well, Teddy, it's not quite so easy as that. He says, no, Daddy, get the facts, make a decision, check. He says, every day I go to school and I have to learn something completely new that I didn't even know existed the day before. If I don't get it completely right, then my next day is misery, because everything is based on the day before. And this went on, and after, at a certain point, I gave in, because you know what? He's right. So it wasn't until the next day that I recognized the truth, though, is our jobs of going to work every day, getting the facts, make a decision, check. The hard part of that is figuring out exactly what are the facts, right? And making sure that we do share a set of facts that allows us to make decisions together so that we can all find a center position. And that's really the challenge here. And nowhere is that more critical and being misused in an education. Now in Colorado, we've got a blueprint for, let's call it a blueprint for transportation, and we have 5 principles. I'm going to run through these. And in each case, what we're trying to use is to create a set of facts to guide us on where to make our investments and where to expand investments and where to perhaps diminish investments. So first principle would be to make sure that we attract the best teachers and the best principals, right? So that our kids come from many different backgrounds. They have unique histories and assets, challenges, but every one of them is capable of learning, and especially if provided those cornerstones of great schools, right? Great principals and great teachers. There's no other single thing we can do that is as important as getting great teachers and great principals in front of our kids. I think when you see the losses that a subpar teacher and a kid can lose a half year, or can go a year and only get a half year of advantage, whereas with a great teacher, they can go for a year and they can get a year and a half or even more of that in progress. I think licensure needs to be reformed to be able to attract top talent, to reflect the realities of where our best teachers come from. And they're not always teacher colleges, right? We know that. It should align with our performance standards so that they're training teachers to be able to achieve in the new systems we have. We've got a legislation now I think we'll get done next year on really reforming licensure. But it goes hand in hand with career ladders, making sure that we have more opportunities for teachers and teacher leaders. You look at what Southwest Airlines, the most unionized airline in the world, but also the most profitable, the most successful. It's because their union has integrated the workforce in helping make the crucial decisions. You know, workplace conditions, schedules, things like that really matter to the workforce. The union's working on that. And I think teachers deserve to have that same level of autonomy and participation in their schools. We also need to think about how we use the hours in a school day. How do we address technology? Part of a great teacher is being able to use technology very effectively, and certainly by having teacher ladders, those who can use technology are able to really outperform and help, in many cases, lift up the performance of other teachers. And our professional ladders that we're trying to put in place in Colorado is going to allow us to give master teachers who are really great at lifting up other teachers additional payments, significant bonuses. Second great point, I think, is to make sure that we have collaboration and innovation in a local control state. You know, in Colorado, we don't have the governor or the commission, the education commission doesn't get to tell each district what to do. We have local control. A lot of people have rebelled against that. You know, the further I've gotten into this over the last dozen years, that's not a bad thing, it's a good thing. Because what we have to do is be partners and help those local communities really succeed in a powerful way, and it forces us to be collaborative. It forces us to say, to persuade them that these are the facts and the facts that matter. Again, study after study shows that a collaborative environment between teachers and administrators, superintendents, all the stakeholders, the parents, when you get that collaborative environment, great teaching comes naturally. And I know firsthand when I was mayor, we saw this on a regular basis and continue to see it as governor, that a collaborative team accomplishes a lot more. I think that if education systems set up common benchmarks, but then devolve most decisions to districts and schools, they're going to do better every time than just a top-down approach where someone's setting the rules and then letting everyone follow. Third principle, and I think everyone in the room knows this and gets it, that we have to support the Common Core and make sure our Colorado academic standards, as we call it, that we stick with that and push back. There's, like in many of your states, a pushback on Common Core, and is this too much from the top down? You need some framework to be able to measure success, to be able to help, you know, good teachers become better teachers and better teachers to become great teachers. You can't do that without some form of objective measure. I think that the challenge here is we've got to figure out how to thread together the local communities with the common standards and expectations. And I think that these common standards across school districts, you know, whether rural or urban or suburban, give students a common set of necessary skills and competencies. Fourth, we have to, and I know, again, everyone in this room is doing this, we have to strengthen literacy and early childhood. I grew up, I was the youngest of 4 kids, and my mom was widowed twice, not once, but twice. And so there wasn't a whole lot of people paying attention to me, and I have dyslexia. I'm, to this day, the world's slowest reader. Actually, no, it's one of the cruelest ironies in life, I think, is that people that have dyslexia very commonly have either, if not ADHD, strong inclinations toward ADHD, very short attention spans. And what a cruel irony that is if you're the very slowest reader, that you also have a short attention span. It's amazing you ever get to read a book to the end, ever. What we had where I grew up outside Philadelphia is we did have, where students were failing at early literacy, they threw the kitchen sink at it. And they gave me speech lessons. They didn't know what dyslexia was back then. I don't want to date myself. But they did put, and I did eventually have to repeat a year of school and kind of figure things out a little bit. But now we are so much more advanced in how we can intercede in things like dyslexia and other learning disabilities to make sure that we catch these kids early enough that we can really make a difference. Last year in Colorado, we passed an early childhood literacy program that I think is one of the more innovative in the country. The READ Act identifies struggling readers early. We try to get to them as early as possible, where possible, sometimes even in kindergarten or in preschool. And certainly by 3rd grade, we want to make sure we get all of them and make sure that by the end of 3rd grade, every kid can read. And that allows them, I mean, our whole system, I mean, they learn how to read, and then they read in order to learn. That's you can't, if you fail in that, in early literacy, you might as well not put on your uniform. 5th, funding reforms and school finance. We have some real challenges of how we fund schools and how the money goes. We are pushing real hard in Colorado to have a formula that offers equity to all districts, an opportunity to all kids. I am a great believer in Colorado. We're going to get this legislation in place that it will require transparency in every district, so you can see exactly how much money goes to every school. And I realize this is very controversial, but it will be powerful, I think, when it's in place. And secondly, making sure that the money follows the kid, right? So that we do a census like most states, 3rd week of school, how many kids are in each school, and that's how much money the state sends to that district. And then the districts get all that money on the average basis of all the schools in their district, and they move it around. We want to get more of that money going directly to the schools, empower the principals to really be the leaders that they can be. But we also recognize that having that one census, right, is a real problem, because then if it's 3 weeks in, and then if the English language learners or the other kids that have dyslexia or some other challenge, they lose attention, they wander away. Let's say they're an 8th grader or 9th grader, and they wander off. The school has no incentive to hold on to them. So what we're trying to do is readjust some of our funding so that, A, there are bonuses for each school if they've got English language learners, that those kids are worth, let's say, another $500 or another $1,000 a year. If they've got kids with, from severe poverty backgrounds, that there's another bonus there. So when those kids drop out, that school is going to have a real incentive. Because the goal here is to try and do a census every day, right? It's the 21st century. And that schools would then be held responsible for their money would be based on how many total days in the school year that kid attended their school. And therefore, the kids that so often when they leave, the school doesn't, they says, well, God, our job's a little easier now. They don't have an incentive to really go out and make sure that kid stays. That would really change. And I think those are kind of the things that in a 21st century, those 5 facets are going to allow us to really change the way, not just we fund schools, but the way we can expect outcomes. I think with high standards and performance outcomes, where we promote innovation and collaboration, we rely on high quality teaching and the elevation of all students, no matter what zip code they come from, making sure that we do target those kids from difficult backgrounds. I think that's where we really make the difference. And hopefully Colorado's going to be a big part of this. People tell me it's impossible, and you can't make these kinds of, we're trying to get all this done by next year, famous last words. We know how important it is, right, to make great workers, great citizens, And it's not impossible. When I first ran for mayor, I had 3% in the polls. Everyone told me I could never win. I used to carry this clipping from the Denver Post about a professor of public speaking at the University of Wyoming. I told this story about 1,000 times when I was running. I don't pull it out too often, but the professor talked about how the importance of using opposites. If you talk about the worst of times, you have to talk about the best of times. You talk about the agony, talk about the ecstasy. The words gain power by being together. She asked her class, what's the opposite of despair? Kid raised her hand and goes, joy. She goes, exactly. You want to feel despair? Use joy in the same sentence. The words get emotional impact. She said, what's the opposite of woe? And the kid way in the back goes, giddy up. And the bottom line is, in terms of something like this, when you want to take on a real challenge, it isn't impossible, and the opposite of woe really is to giddy up. So together, we will giddy up forward on making these reforms reality. Thank you.